Blood, we explore the journeys, records, and family stories that connect Italy to the world. Because when you discover your roots, you don't just find names, you find yourself. And be sure to check us out on our Facebook group, our YouTube channel, and our blog and newsletter, and our great sponsor, Phil Italy. And I have two fantastic guests today, Christopher Martini and Anthony DeSantis. Anthony's the author of a book, Stowaway in First Class, and Christopher's helping to put that onto the screen. So, welcome, guys. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Bob. We're very excited to be here. We appreciate your inviting us to do this.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
It's
It's great to
great. Thank you so much for having me. Grazie mille.
well, it's always great to connect with Italian Americans and get their stories. So, Anthony, I'm going to start with you and to just ask you, a little bit about your background. Where's your family from in Italy, and where did you grow up?
Okay, that's a good place to start. Um, my my father and all my Italian relatives come from an area in Italy about 60 miles south of Rome, in the along the Apennine mountain range. It's called Arce, Arce, and it's in an area of Italy in the province of Frosinone, but it's still Lazio, so it's still part of Rome. Um, and they are all still there, and they've scattered to different places, but they all have homes in that locale. I grew up in a town just outside of Boston called Framingham, and I grew up in an Italian neighborhood with eating Italian food and listening to Italian stories and knowing everything Italian. And my childhood was a wonderful one. We didn't have much money. We struggled financially, but as an Italian American growing up in that community, it was a wonderful experience. And my Italian roots became even stronger when my parents took me to Italy when I was only 12 years old, and I got to spend 2 months with my Italian relatives, and I fell in love with them, and I fell in love with their country. In fact, I didn't want to come home, but it was that started it, and we've been close ever since.
Oh, that's super. I had no idea that I had family there from my father's side mostly, uh, and I didn't get to meet them until just a few years ago. But my dad's first cousins still alive. They're like in their late 80s, early 90s, and I
Wow.
had no idea these people were around. It just pains me. I can't tell you how much it pains me that I didn't know. So that's great. You got to go when you're 12. You were 12 and fell in love with it. Fantastic. And um, one of my favorite guys was Italian American from Boston, Anthony Riccio, and he we met and I interviewed him, and he was only 69 and he passed away, but he was such a super guy in the Italian American community in the North End, and really such a loss to all of us for sure. So, Chris, how about you? Where's your family from, and where'd you grow up?
Yeah, I mean, I was born in Dallas, Texas, but my father was from Italy, from Rome. My mom is from Texas. My dad passed away, but he was from Rome, Italy. He was a sculptor, so he knew how to make bronze sculptures, all kind marble, all kinds of stuff, and you know, he he's he's from Rome proper, from the city, but he went to school in an area called Buffalota, and which is just outside of Rome. And he grew up during World War II. Um, he came to America. He met my mom in the '60s. I think they were hippies in San Francisco, and then my dad moved our family to Woodstock, where my brother was born. And my brother was born in Woodstock in the summer of '69. My dad was struggling as an artist, So my mom, my dad needed a little bit of help. So they moved to Dallas, where I was born, where my sister was born. You know, we grew up in, this big, actually a synagogue that my dad bought a synagogue in Dallas and converted it into an art studio. And so I just found a documentary on him. Somebody filmed him, like a news station, and he was like pouring metal. So it was just really interesting kind of upbringing. My parents did split up when I was very young, and so I would go to visit my father every summer, and he would try so hard to teach me Italian, and just I almost like forcing it on me because he really wanted me to learn. And just because he was an artist from Rome, he would try to teach me about like art and culture and all kinds of stuff. He took us to Rome, and this was the amazing thing, is that my father also had a PhD in art history. So when we went to Rome, he could actually tell me the history of every painting. It was amazing. Like he knew everything. He knew every painting, every sculpture, and then he would we'd see a villa, and he would tell me that that column or that piece of marble was stolen from the Colosseum, like just stuff like that. And just and then we'd see these German tourists or something, and he'd go, your father's going to take you around Rome in half the time. Like he knew, like you're going to see all the monuments in half the time as those guys. And then he knew all these like secret passages and shortcuts and stuff. So he was a really stubborn artist, slightly difficult person, but he gave me sort of just a love of Italy. um I choke up a little bit because it's so important to me. He gave me art, he gave me culture. um and I miss him. I miss him a lot.
Oh, I can understand that for sure. I mean, I feel that way about my dad too. So that's but that's cool. I mean, I've been learning about Italian cowboys recently in Colorado and out west. I didn't know we had Italian hippies, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
How
Well,
old
he
was
did. I don't think he liked hippies. I think he looked like one.
so how old was he when Woodstock?
He must have been in his. It was around when my brother was born. He would have had to been in his late 20s or early 30s, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't go. I was 18. I didn't go. My brother was there. My brother was like 23. Uh, and he went there. And then my cousin Paul, my dad worked for the Daily News as a photographer. My cousin Paul did too. And I guess he was younger, so they sent my cousin to Woodstock to take pictures and everything like that. But that's really cool. And so how they wind up in Dallas then? Just job or
Well, my grandparents were there, and as I said, they weren't doing too well, and he needed money. Um, the story of our lives, as filmmakers, artists, we always need money. And so the grandparents were going to give him, some financial support and help him, buy this building and that kind of thing.
oh, nice, nice. Uh, so Anthony, so the book you wrote, Stowaway in First Class, is that based on family stories that you heard growing up?
Yeah, it is. It's basically the story of how we got here. I mean, and it's something that I wanted to write for a long time. But it's the story of my father's harrowing journey to come to America, uh, unknowingly caught up in an extortion scheme, which he wasn't aware of. And then it also includes the search 57 years later to find the woman he had left behind and had not spoken to or seen since. So that's all part of this story. And as people have told me, it reads like a thriller, a lot of twists and turns, a lot of plot um, escapades, but not to give so much of it away, but it it's a page turner. I have to say that.
Oh, nice, nice.
But it's
Uh,
about my father's journey, and so it's my legacy. Had he not made the journey, well, I wouldn't be here. My family wouldn't be here. And the important thing for me is that in one generation, when he came over in 1929 uh, as a stowaway, one generation later, I was offered an opportunity to go to a prestigious military academy, to the college of my choice, by the country that eventually adopted him as part of their country too. So this is an American story of Italian Americans and how life can become super spectacular in your life when you don't expect anything. And my father never expected that.
so why did he come?
Why did he come?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he'd been communicating with a cousin of his that had come 7 or 8 years prior, and he always wanted to come over, but this was in the early 20s. But then in 1924, if you remember, they had the Immigration Act in Congress, which basically shut the door, and unless you had special permission, consulate, your embassy, passport, and all that stuff, you couldn't just get on a boat like you used to prior to that and come across. Before then, there was open borders, and after 1924, it was basically we don't want Italians, we don't want low class people coming from Southern Europe, so don't come. And so he didn't think he was ever going to make it. But then when he was given this opportunity, because he was told that that his journey was paid for, but as you find out in the book, it really wasn't. And so he came over basically because he owed his cousin the opportunity to see it through. He thought his cousin had paid a lot of money to get him across, and so he decided to get on a ship and come over.
Wow, that's so interesting. Yeah, and you mentioned that immigration when they shut it down. I have a friend, a close friend. I know she's since we're like 18. Her mother, and I have to get her on the show. Her mother was one of those exceptions that you spoke about. There was a boat that came over. I think I want to say it was like 19, maybe 1931 or something like that. And it was one boat filled with Italians. Uh, Fiorello LaGuardia had something to do with it, so
Oh,
they
wow.
so they believe. And they got here in November, and they were citizens, or at least applying for citizenship in February.
Wow.
So there was some, and she doesn't know the whole story. I've tried to research it and find the story, and don't know. But to your point, he somehow got this one ship over with a 500 to 600 Italians. And I think there was maybe one or two instances like that. But to your point,
Yeah.
everybody else was shut down. My uncle had to wait in Canada. He was left behind when my grandparents came as a child, and he had to wait in Canada for 4 years with his family in from between 1946 and 19 no between 1949 and like 1954, even though his four of his brothers served in the World War II.
Right.
He still had to wait. He still had
That's
to
right.
wait. So that's one of the unfortunate things, and I guess that happened to us. You know, my grandparents were enemy aliens. So
Yeah.
there you go. Uh, So, uh, Chris, what's I just figure out how to ask this question. What stirs you to wanna, make this into a movie and put this on the screen?
Yeah, it's crazy because you know I was approached by Alyssa from Chow DC. She interviewed me a while ago, and you know she sent me this book. And people send me books all the time. I get so many books. People that want to turn their books into movies. I have stacks of books at home that I'll be lucky if I get to while I'm still alive. Two kids. I just moved my family on. This was like the worst time for me to take something on, but there was something about this book. I just had to read it. And okay, first off, it it's perfectly written for a movie. It's written cinematically. It's written um, as a linear 3-act movie. So it was very, it wasn't arduous. It's not arduous to adapt it. Um, and reading it, I knew what kind of was going to make it in the final film, and what wouldn't, what would work on screen, and what would need to be adapted cinematically, because movies are told in present tense. Um, you have to write it as if you're watching it, and a screenplay doesn't have to be a literary piece of work. It kind of has to flow. So when you read, like, William Goldman and some of the best writers, it just they just it just it's written like you watch it. So anyways, the book was like very, what Tony did was very close to that, kind of like Graham Greene. Like, there's certain authors that you can adapt their work really easily. So that out of the way. But you just keep reading it. But the real reason I wanted to do this is that, okay, yes, immigration is a hot topic right now. um and but this book is not political at all. And it shows sort of the complexities of immigration. And it's not written from one side or the other, because it shows that, because the main character Gaetano comes over. Yes, he comes over illegally, but it's that desire to get to America and want to succeed and earn an honest living and contribute to society. So there are people that have to come here by any means possible, but they want to do good things when they get here. But also, the really interesting thing about the book is that there's a parallel with what's going on today to show how complex it is, because there's another perspective where the country that was going to embrace Gaetano was not embracing him with open arms. The racism against Italians, and but then from the Anglo perspective in America, they just, at the time, they wanted to preserve the culture that they fought hard for. So there's multiple perspectives there. So, but I think that the two biggest reasons I wanted to do this and take this on is because it's a typical story, but it's told in a really atypical way. It's really unique, the actual events and incidents that take Gaetano from France, which is really interesting because it starts in France,
Mm.
to America. So it, it's an archetypal story, but just the way that what really happens is very unique. And the top reason is that I wanted to do this is because the main character, the protagonist, Gaetano, who, you know, you look at Anthony and I see Gaetano, obviously, because father and son. Anthony is a great guy, and this character is a great guy. Gaetano is a great, like, it was just it's great to write about characters that are good people and that have good intentions, that are slightly innocent. I prefer that over writing, characters that are evil. So, it's just the kind of story that I want to tell. It reminded me of one of my favorite movies, which is Il Postino, which has a very kind of innocent character who undergoes change, but going from sort of naive to a more aware state. And it's just very poetic. And just kind of like The Bicycle Thief, the old Italian Vittorio De Sica movie that I love so much. It almost felt slightly neo-realistic, this story. So um yeah, a simple story, well told. It's just exactly the kind of thing that I want to do.
Oh, that's great. That's cool. So Anthony, what did your dad do when he arrived here?
Well, all he could do, I mean, he was working in France on a construction site as a crane operator, but when he got to America, he was just um, he had to find jobs working pick and shovel. He was basically a construction laborer, and that's what he did his whole life. He got a job uh, digging ditches and fixing walls and preparing roads, and he worked very, very hard. But he actually worked hard. He wasn't here to get a handout. He was here to get a hand up, and he worked hard and eventually bought a house, and he raised his kids and became a citizen. So I guess that's a story that I wanted to tell, is that you can come here under stressful circumstances, but if you have the right mindset, you can make it and you can get to wherever you want to go do and provide for your family. And that's what he did. Even though he worked hard until he retired at age 65, he was pick and shovel the whole time. And but he was just a great dad and a great guy. And I am so happy that I got to tell this story. And I can kind of tell you a little bit of the events that led up to me telling it, but I'll wait till you ask that question. But it's just a great opportunity for me to tell about my dad.
And what's interesting about what you were saying is, I don't know, I don't think too many people know about um, a silent movie. I guess early 20s or something like that. It's called the Making of an American, and it's maybe 15 minutes or something like that. But it tells the story of a man who came over and didn't speak any English and was pick and shovel stuff. I mean, he just how stumbled on a thing, and they give him a shovel, and um, they show how he learned English and then became a force in the community, and then he taught the next guy over and told him, well, if you learn English and stuff like that. And it's really a cool movie because it's not that stereotypical dumb Italian kind of thing, And what's amazing about it, it was American made, um, and it's very moving when you see it. And I have it on my channel, but it's a really interesting movie for people to see.
But one thing I wanted to also just add is that it's through Gaetano's character, you're walking in his footsteps, and you get to kind of, with this story, fall in love with America again. And just when you see that desire to get here, it just reminds you of how important things are. I mean, this man literally didn't have lights in Italy, where at the time. And so and then so he goes to France because they have opportunity and electricity. And then he becomes aware of America through various things. and just that desire to come here, and you learn again all the reasons why America was important to them at the time, and those reasons still exist today. We just have to remember what they are.
Um, yeah, yeah. No, I hear what you're saying. And I had another question, and it that's what happens when you're 75. Right?
Yeah.
They
Wait
it
till
comes in,
wait
it
till you're
comes in,
78. Yeah. Yeah.
it comes in, and it goes right out.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I was
yeah.
going to ask you, I was going to tell you about how this all came about, if that's where you were heading.
Yes, yeah. I wasn't, but let's go there.
Yeah. Well, about 4 years ago, I was flying my airplane like I had done for 50 something years. I've been flying airplanes for 53 years. And I was preparing for a trip to the Keys with my wife, Judy. And everything was fine. I was in great health. I was in great shape. I was living the life of a retired airline pilot, a financial advisor. Life was good. I was so blessed. So the next day, I went in for a small procedure at a surgery center, and during that procedure, I had a stroke, and it was only a 10-minute procedure, but I came out totally different. And for a while there, my wife and the doctors didn't know whether I would survive, or even if I did, what kind of life would I lead. And so it was really a shock to them and to me when I finally woke up 3 days later and realized what happened. And I asked my wife, did I crash? And she said, no, you didn't crash. You had a stroke during the procedure. And I didn't know whether to thank God or, to be happy or be sad. But so for the next 6 weeks, I was in rehab at the ICU, and then at a rehab center. And then I came home, and I had the choice then of either sitting in the corner and feeling sorry for myself because I couldn't fly anymore. I could hardly walk. I couldn't talk. I couldn't swallow. I mean, my life had completely changed. But I had the other option. God had left me here for a reason, and that reason came to me, and it was basically, you need to write your dad's story. You've been wanting to write it for 50 years. Now I've given you the opportunity to do nothing but write that story. So that's what I did for the next 2 years in my recovery. I would wake up every day and write a little bit of this story about my father. And what really helped me was I had interviewed my father on film, 35, 40 years prior to that. So I had the story in his words. So it helped me write it. And I had good help, good editors, I had good teachers. I had to learn how to write. So I took online courses to learn the craft of writing. And so little by little, I wrote the story, and never knowing where it would go. I just wanted to have the history of our family written down. And I would encourage all your viewers and people that are listening that if they haven't done that yet, they should film their ancestors. They should film their parents or grandparents and get the stories, because you never know when you're going to need it and when you're going to want to use it. But fortunately, I did, and so I wrote the book, and we had good help, and we've got it on Amazon, and everything's gone crazy since then. It's been an Amazon bestseller for the last 6 months. It's only been out a year, not even a year. I've gotten some literary awards, several of those, and now the best part is meeting Chris Martini here, and him telling, Tony, would you like to work with me, maybe make this thing into a movie? So that's been the highlight of this whole journey. But that's how it all came about. It was a result of a stroke.
Wow. That's an incredible story. And I truly believe some of us were selected to do these kinds of things. I mean, I didn't get great fanfare, but I did it mostly for myself. But I wrote a book about my research and my family and growing up with, my aunts and uncles. My mother had 8 brothers and sisters. And my father had 4 brothers and sisters. And I always say that my life growing up when I was a kid, I had 9 sets of parents because my mother's family, uh, they were all like they were like our they were like just another set of parents, you know? They cared about you, they did anything with you, they'd slap you in the back of the head if you got out of line and, and and your mother and you didn't dare tell your mother because then you get another slap in the back of the head, right? So,
Exactly. I
uh,
can relate. Yeah.
but, that's the way it was, for me growing up, I've well, a lot of people I interviewed, they had that same kind of experience, the close-knit family and, um, it's probably not unique to Italians, but I think we personify it better. But where I started with this is I just feel I was chosen that I have to, um, research my ancestors and tell everybody about it. And, you mentioned you filmed your dad. My, my cousin interviewed, my uncle that was left behind in Italy, in Barres, and he never told us that. Nobody ever knew about it. And I told him, "Joey," I said, "You gotta translate that and, give it to the family. This is like our history." And it was fantastic because he recounts his childhood growing up in Torito Bari, through meeting my aunt and World War II, and then I interviewed my cousin who was 18 when she came over. So it's that very, very important, like you said, to now it's easy to record everybody, right? You get out your camera and there you go.
Yeah.
Um, so I know we wanted to touch a little bit about the trials and tribulations of getting Italian citizenship. I'm stymied, Anthony. I think you said you are too, right?
Yeah, we've been trying for the last 3 years, and we keep filling out these forms and getting, contacting this county and that county. But back then, so many of the forms, documentation was not done well, and names were screwed up or not written correctly. So we kept running into problems. But then recently, delay, and then recently the Italian government changed their policy for somebody like me that is going through my mother's father, because my father, once he became a citizen, he had to denounce, you
Mhm.
know, his Italian citizenship. So that closed the door for me on that way. But my grandfather on my mother's side, I could still apply through him. But when the Italian government changed their policy that said, okay, it'll go down one generation, in other words, it's still possible for me to get it, but for my children, um, they can't get it. So as it stands right now, there's no reason for me to pursue it if I can't pass it on to my children. I don't really need it. I'm too old to do it, but it would have been nice to be able to pass it on to my children. In fact, at the beginning, I had my children and grandchildren on it, but they no longer honor that.
Yeah, I'm in the exact same boat, and same thing. I'm like, what am I going to do with it? And my kids, they're only 30 and 29, so they're young. Uh, what really bothers me about this whole thing is just recently they gave it uh, for special merit or some nonsense to Maria Bartiromo, and I'm like, well, geez, that's not right. And then Jimmy Kimmel got it.
Oh,
And I'm like, you know, yeah, and what's really annoying, I mean, I was kind of in the pipeline as you were, but there were people who were like, this close. And
yeah.
there was no
I,
like, okay, you're in the process, we'll let you slide. That's it. Too bad.
my so my I got it, and I'll tell you how difficult it was. It was very difficult. But it was very easy for me to get it from my son, who's 5, who at the time had blonde hair. Now this is funny because there's an Italian restaurant when I lived in Brooklyn, which was not too long ago, on the corner called Giovanni's, and inside Giovanni's is Giovanni, the owner, and He's from southern Italy, very dark, and you know, I think I texted him a photo of my son's Italian passport, and it really pissed him off because my son, you know, blonde hair, blue eyes, you know, Giovanni, who has an Italian first and last name, who looks Italian, can't get his passport, and here I am with, you know, my Germanic looking son, you know, with his Italian passport. I don't think he'd forgive me for that, and he might have actually charged me double from that moment moving forward. Anyways, but it was very difficult for me to get the Italian passport. You know, and my father didn't even renounce my father had an Italian passport when he died, so he never renounced his citizenship. However, you know, you need you need insane amount of documents, and the whole process is so confusing. Anyone looking to do this, and I didn't have AI at the time, you know, if anyone looking to do this, I highly suggest you get on Chat GPT, because it's actually an incredible, because it cuts right through the bureaucracy. It tells you exactly what steps you have to take, and you can, you know, you can say, "Oh, you know, I got this document. What do I do next?" Bam. I mean, it's just, if I had that tool at the time, it would have been much quicker and very you know, simple for me. But you need all these different kinds of documents. You know, your birth certificates from Italy, this, that, marriage certificates from Italy. You know, and you know, I was missing stuff, and and you have to make an appointment and wait a year. So if you don't have something, well, guess what? You're waiting another year. Well, 3, 4 years went by, and I finally was in there, and I was like, it occurred to me that my father had been in that consulate. So I'm sitting in the consulate. There's a guy in the desk, and I said, well, you know what? I think you might have those documents like literally in the back. So, and I don't think they want to give it to you. To be honest with you, it's just they make it difficult for you. So, but once he knew that it might be in the back, because I said my father came here, he literally went to the back and looked and found the document that was missing, and I got my passport. They didn't want to give it to me, but they gave it to me. So it was great. But this is what it's like living in Italy. You have to jump through hoops. You can't just go from point A to point, you know, B by A B C D. You got to go to A to D to B to C to A back to
Uh-huh.
D. I mean, like, but I don't think you guys should give up, to be honest with you. I mean, because if there's a way that you can get it for your family, it's going to be incredible. I mean, I want my son, and I was willing to help Tony. I want my son. I'm trying to teach my son Italian. He's been to Italian camp. He's been to Italy. So, I feel like he has his Italian passport, and he has a responsibility to speak the language and to integrate with the culture. So, I think that's very important, and I think he'll fall in love with it when he does.
Yeah. So my great grandmother was Amelia Caracciolo di Tocciarolo. Her grandfather was Prince Luigi. Uh, Going back other generations, there were princes. That family, I could trace my direct line back to the first Caracciolo in Naples in 950 AD, and I can't get my so I could trace back 1,000 years, and they won't give me a passport. And
No.
they gave it to Jimmy Kimmel. So that's my
Yeah,
sob
well,
story. Um, but I in some ways I kind of understand that they wanted to throttle it. I feel more sorry for the people who are, like I said before, very, very, very close. Maybe have one more step, or maybe even had appointments, and they just got kicked out. which is terrible. Um, so before we go, I'm going to ask each of you just to let people know where they could reach you or find the book. So Anthony, where could they find the book, and if they want to contact you, how do they do that?
Sure. Well, the book is listed on Amazon, so they can find it there, and it's on barnesandnoble.com and several other sites. But you can log into my website, which is www.anthonydesantis.com, and there's several links on my website to Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and the other sites where you can purchase the book. So that's one way, and I don't know if it's in stores yet. I haven't seen it in any stores. It's only been out, like I said, less than a year. But that's the best way: Amazon and through my website. And so that would be the easiest.
Great. And Chris, how about you? If people want to get in touch with you or see any of your movies, how would they do that?
Sure, yeah. Well, if you want to, my social media, I'm most active on Instagram probably. So that's one word, triple martini prod, TRIPLEMARTINI prod, PROD. And then my website is triplemartiniproductions.com. You can see my other work. I don't update that often. I've been too busy to update it, but yeah, that's the two best methods. But you can contact me through my website also.
Well, that's fantastic. Great stuff. I'm looking forward to. I promise I'll read the book. Like I said, I had my 2 eyes done within the last 3 weeks, so I was catching up with that. But I don't need glasses now to
All
see the
right, good for you.
That's good. And I could see the white lines on the road, so that's a big bonus. Um, yeah, and I look forward to seeing the movie. So when it's done, you guys gonna have to come back on, and we'll talk about the movie when it's.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. Well, thanks again. Don't go away. I'm just gonna stop the recording. We need to catch up.
Okay.